Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, and I'm here to give you some inspiration to help you with your aspiration. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what the heck is progressive evolutionary astrology, why would you even want to know about it, and what can it do for you. And then we're going to have a wonderful interview with my apprentice, McDubs, otherwise known as Mackenzie. Mackenzie has been working really hard with me. She's been doing a lot of practice charts, and she's been nailing her interpretations. And so we talked a little bit the other day, and that will be in this episode as well. And I think you're going to enjoy the conversation as much as I did having it with her. She is a joy and a pleasure. And you know what? She is going to be a rock star astrologer. Just takes a little bit of time and practice, and I enjoy being her training wheels. And then, of course, we have our patron shout outs, because without my patrons, none of this happens. So big thank yous to them. We have a wonderful growing community. Discord is full of lots of great conversations. And so if you're a patron and you haven't participated, please do. No one's going to bite you, okay? Come in, say hi, celebrate the successes, commiserate the owies. We have both places. We have the venting chamber, and we have our celebrations channel, and a whole lot in between. It's an amazing community. I can only take a little bit of the credit because a community or a group is only as good as the people who are within it. And I just want to thank every single patron for making a really special space. So thank you so much. And as always, big thanks to the mods, and that's coming up in the Patreon shout outs. So thank you. As always, you guys make my day, and you make me laugh a lot too, which is important. So without further ado, let's talk about evolutionary astrology, or progressive evolutionary astrology, and why it's a little different from evolutionary astrology. The reason I added progressive to the kind of astrology I do is because I did study, after learning classical astrology and mundane astrology, I ventured into evolutionary astrology. And I studied with Jeffrey Wolf Green, and of course read Stephen Forrest. I used to, write back and forth with Stephen. He's a pretty cool dude. Stephen Arroyo, and these guys are really amazing. And Alan Oken could probably fall into that as well. He preferred to call it soul-centered astrology. And I kind of float between both worlds. My issue with anything labeled evolutionary in this moment, in our current reality, in the world we live in, is there's still a lot of kind of toxic beliefs surrounding it, that this is man and this is woman and this is masculinity and this is femininity. And they're all a little bit ridiculous because they're not taking into account how these are all definitions that were made up. All of our definitions for everything was made up when it comes to interpretive language. And so my issue with classical interpretation, or even evolutionary astrology's interpretation of a lot of what we talk about when it comes to the planets and the signs, is we use in those modalities, we use really old, outdated concepts of gender. And there's lots of excuses for it. There's lots of, well, no, we mean receptive and active. But I still think it could be moved into a more gender-neutral space, or what people call today non-binary. And back in the mid-90s, when I was a young astrological student, I kind of pressed this case to my teacher, who was like, I don't know what to do with this, Laurie. I'm okay, keep studying. But he would argue with me because he was a guy. And, it's not like he would examine my arguments before arguing. He would just come from his point of view, which, he was a middle-aged white dude back in the 90s. So what do you expect? Anyway, I was pretty used to having to argue these points. And the first point I argued was we pay a lot of attention to the sun, We take a look at the moon. They're very stylistically addressed when you look at classical astrological interpretation. But people jump right over the top of Mercury and Venus, right over the top, and then scoot into Mars. And that bothered me a little bit, because Mercury, if it represents our ideas and ideals, the way we communicate, the way we actually kind of move, our movement, not our actions, but our movement, and we're just kind of glossing over it. Oh yeah, that's how you communicate. Yeah, no big deal. It's only what helps humans do everything humans do, whether you're communicating verbally, non-verbally, through your artwork or through your dance, photography. Those are all forms of communication. In fact, there are very specific cultural dances designed to communicate stories and belief systems. And so I was like, why are we jumping over the top of Mercury? And then, of course, Venus, well, that's just desire, and desire is bad. That's just security. And, well, you know, that's self-worth, you know. Oh, and by the way, it happens to represent the feminine. And so, you know, just jump over that, because we're going to blame the feminine for everything that goes wrong. I'm oversimplifying the argument and being a little melodramatic on purpose, because, you know, part of what I do is edutainment. But you get my point at this point. It was, why are we jumping over the top of these very important parts of what make us us? Because remember, the sun is not your personality, it's your energy levels. The whole of your chart makes up your personality, and our personality is very layered. And that's what all the placements are, all the houses are. It represents how you express your personality in various ways. I think it was really, really reductionist in the 1960s, where people were like, the sun is your personality and your emotions are represented by the moon. You know, how you emotionally process is part of your personality. So it was all these kind of revolutionary thoughts that got me in a lot of trouble as a young astrologer. It was not very popular to talk this way, especially to your elders. You know, as a young astrologer, I got a whole lot of, what do you know, kid? And I was like, well, you know, I only specialized in intercultural communication and human development, stuff like that, studied extra communications, you know, and how human beings develop their communications, you know, pardon my Mercury ruled chart. But I think today I have enough gray hair that I can get away just making some bold statements and bold claims. And as I talked with Mackenzie in our interview, you know, and pointed out, hey, I love that my students challenge me. I love that they ask questions. I don't ever want anybody to just take what I have to say for granted. I think that's a recipe for a cult. You know, I'm not out here starting a cult. I'm not going to say that I'm not a little tempted, because I do have a 9th house sun in Mercury, but I also have like these things called principles, so I'm not going to do it. I want people to train their Mercuries. I want them to learn how to observe, analyze, and then apply data, and not just take information because somebody said so, including this somebody. And so when we're looking at progressive evolutionary astrology, we're progressing the narrative. We're doing some exploration, and we're looking at ourselves kind of in a neutral space, if possible, just to observe what is our social cultural programming, just to observe it. I don't think we need to deep dive into it. I don't think we need to look for causality. I think looking for causality causes a lot of problems. If you think about the TikTok sound, oh no, the table, it's broken. That's a really good example of how causality doesn't really fix the problem. So if the table is completely smashed, knowing that the dog broke it isn't going to A, fix it, or B, get you a new table. So I think we can identify things. Oh, look, the table is broken. And then determine, do I want a new table? Do I want some just TV trays? What do I want with this? Now that I know, I have this belief about myself, and I really prefer us to look at our own selves. I have this belief about myself. I have this understanding of myself. Now what do I do with it? Do I want to keep it? Is it valid? are there other ways of looking at myself? And so training your Mercury helps you observe and then analyze a little bit and then apply that knowledge. And you can do that through studying your natal chart and learning about transits and kind of expanding your own narrative about you instead of using the imposed narrative you've been given. So when we look at the first house, which is your I am nature, everybody assumes that that's automatically your authentic self. That's how you present yourself to the world. That's how you see yourself. It's how you present yourself. The thing is, it's from our earliest moments in life, our identity is presented to us. We are told who we are. We are told this is true about me, whether people feel I'm attractive or unattractive, whether people think I'm a go-getter or not, whether people think I'm too loud, too small, too big, too much, too little, not enough, overly much, etc., etc. And so we get all these programs or thoughts or stories about ourselves, and we grow up believing them because, you know, these big people that are much bigger than us seem to have things going on for themselves, the adults in our lives, whether it's parents, teachers, elder siblings, neighbors, people important to us, people who aren't important to it. We take in a lot. And then we have the media, which includes television. I love how everybody's going after social media right now, but you know, they leave television the hell alone. And television is hugely responsible for programming social narratives. You know, hello, looking at you, Fox News. But all of it is indoctrination. And so when you can train your Mercury, you're better able to unpack those ideas about yourself. You're more able to take a look at how you want to be. And when you use more modernized descriptions and definitions that are a little less steeped in very archaic, we can speak, archaic narratives, then you're able to describe and define for yourself where you want to go. You can also then expand your understanding of your own innate value. That's Venus. That's your second house. How you bring your security to yourself. What matters to you, like breathing, because that's Venus. Venus is the things we find important. It's the stuff we love to collect. It's the, and it's many different things. You know, we don't just collect one thing. So we can collect stories. We can collect people. We can collect books. We can collect gold doubloons. We can collect adventures. We can collect businesses. We can collect tons of stuff. We can collect anything. And so those collections sometimes start out because somebody else got us started. Sometimes it starts out because we actually have a genuine interest and things really float our boat. We live in a very commercialized society, and we have been programmed to believe what we want. And there's a famous Steve Jobs quote is, people don't know what they want until you tell them. Okay. And there are billions of dollars spent to impair your vision of yourself and knock down your self-worth. And that's in the marketing and advertising worlds. And so, with progressive evolutionary astrology, we can unpack these narratives. That's what, you know, the mystery school curriculum is going to help people do. Not live or believe the way I believe. I'm not going to give you my idea because only I can live my life authentically, but I have developed the process for you to describe and determine that for yourself. And I think that's a very, very valuable thing when you can know what is you authentically, what are your wants, desires, hopes, dreams, and aspirations that are authentic to you. And then how do you communicate this, these thoughts, dreams, ideals out in the world? And that's what progressive evolutionary astrology is. You're never going to hear me talking about the divine masculine and feminine. I think it's a load of crap. I'm just going to be bold about it. The divine itself, the universe, is neutral. It's too big for set genders. And you're like, but what about deities, Laurie? And I'm going to argue that human beings are so strong in their thought nature. Okay, so strong in their thought nature that we created the deities. We did that by imagining, and this is a great time to talk about imagination because we have Jupiter and Neptune and now Venus in Pisces. So we imagined, remember, Jupiter rules belief systems and Neptune rules faith, and human beings are so adept at crafting narratives that we interpreted our idea of the universe and the powers beyond our physical self as deity. And we gave them names, we gave them practices, and we created them. So these things called egregores, and that's a common concept being discussed here and there by especially some people in my age group, because we were unpacking religious doctrine as well when we were in our 20s and 30s, especially in the metaphysical arena. And I think it's really, really important to examine these narratives that we run into, because they almost always still adopt the, original sin concept. I think they still adopt a lot of the man protector, woman weak kind of idea. She's receptive, and if she's in her divine feminine, she is going to lean on her king and he will protect her. I don't know. I've been in the spiritual community. You can see the air quotes. You can see them on the TikTok and on the YouTube. It's not really a community. There's a bunch of different groups who believe lots of different things. But I have floated about in the spiritual realm. Oh my God, even before I was an astrologer back in the 80s. And I've seen a lot of people use these concepts to take advantage of people, because it's just a continuation of social cultural programming. And I think it's up to each individual to decide how their divine nature expresses itself. And I think overly relying on these set definitions is again, it's a control mechanism, and that's an anathema to this person. So I think it's really important, like in all things in life, that you can't have an achievement of any kind, whether it's physical and material or spiritual, if it's not self-described. Because if you're operating off of somebody else's ideals and ideas, they're not really yours. And so anything you achieve can end up feeling hollow and meaningless, especially if you're trying to prove your value to somebody or shine in a certain way that gets certain people's attention. You're just going to kind of fall short on yourself, and then you're going to wonder what's wrong with you. And I speak from personal experience on that one. As a young person, I achieved a lot of the goals I set for myself very young. I had this big list as a teenager, and everybody was like, oh, you're going to be 30 or older before you achieve all that stuff. And really, by the time I was like 21, 22, I'd done a lot of it. And it wasn't as exciting. Like, getting there was exciting. But once I had it, then what did I do? And how do you make new goals? And how do you make new dreams when you've been told all these things are really, really hard to do? And it wasn't that they were easy to do. It's just I'm a very determined person. I kind of wrote about that in the horoscopes yesterday, about being determined. And it wasn't that I had a bunch of people paying my way either. It's just I kind of had my head down and just plowed through things. Which people would say isn't very feminine. Because, I used to get that a lot in the 90s when I hung out in some spiritual circles in the early 2000s. Well, you're a little bit masculine, young lady. And I'm like, what does that even mean? That I'm self-determinate, so I have to be a good little girl and let somebody else tell me how to live my life? Insert evil laughter there. What? I don't know. My grandma was a pioneer, and my great-grandma, who I never got to meet, was a suffragette. So I guess I come from a long line of very pretty masculine women. How's that? Very, very pretty masculine women. Because my great-grandmother, the suffragette, on a single day, in her lovely little Gibson girl outfit, had her skirts tied up, showing her ankles, mind you, while she roofed the church Okay, the church roof. She was working on the roof and then found out her brothers were in a tavern, jumped off the roof. She was like 5'0" nothing. Jumped off a roof, grabbed an axe, marched down to the tavern, took an axe to the casks in the tavern, and then marched her very giant brothers out because they were very tall and she was very short. Marched them out at axe point. So, yeah, I guess I come from a long line of very pretty masculine women. Oh well. By the way, my grandfather was very progressive and very much appreciated strong women. And so did my great uncle. And he once warned my brother that men in our family have a taste for intrepid women. By the way, that was the Pacific Northwest. And maybe because you just had to be a little tougher at that time. I don't know. But the idea that you have to be like, oh no, where is my man? When will he save me? Just makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. So that all of that is just really unthought out dogma that keeps being perpetuated, and it almost never ever benefits the woman, and it doesn't benefit men either. So like that whole you must be strong like bear. Yeah. Okay, give me a bear hug. How's that? I think we have to examine these stories critically, and really look at what's the purpose of these stories. Is it to enlighten people or is it to keep them in boxes? And when we look at how so many people in the spiritual world, here comes the air quotes, spiritual world alert, went down the stupid path of the people who support really right-wing ideals, very bigoted ideals. It's because they never unpacked the dogma of where they left. They usually left a fairly conservative belief system. Not all of them were evangelical. A lot of them left very conservative Catholic practices. Some of them left conservative Lutheran practices. Of course, people have left the evangelical realm. And then they just bring on the bigotry right into the spiritual movement, which is why I went public in 2020, because I was like, oh, hell no. Let me combat this QAnon thing. If I'm the only reasonable voice, so be it. I am prepared to be a reasonable voice amongst the quackadoodles. And yes, we'll call them quackadoodles for now. There is no reason to deny actual science and be a metaphysician, because that gives people like Neil deGrasse Tyson so much fuel for their arguments in debunking metaphysics. Because they look at those guys. They don't listen to people like me, because I make their narrative a lot harder, okay? Because I don't refute science. I think science is cool. I've always been into science. But I don't see why these things have to be separate. I think science just hasn't always studied the matter. So progressive evolutionary astrology kind of addresses these things, kind of mulls them over, stretches our understanding a little bit, and also involves a process of employing other metaphysical concepts, understanding like how energy works. So like instead of determining whether something is good or bad, it's really how does that energy flow? Okay, so is there some kind of resistance in that energy, like when we have a square, or is it unrestricted when we have a trine? And believe it or not, sometimes restrictions actually help us, and sometimes unrestricted energy in a trine, it's like a fire hose. It's not always that benefic thing that traditional astrology would have us believe. Just like Jupiter transits aren't always good. They could just be like a lot of everything. They might be good, air quotes again, in retrospect. But at the time, it can just feel like a lot is a lot is a lot. Just like Venus is something that is often beneficial, but it can be a little bit, it can be a little hard when we're unpacking our belief systems. And if what we believe about our worth is something we have to shore up through artifice or concern about what other people think of us. That those can be kind of crunchy when those beliefs are challenged. So it's getting to the root or the radix of what's important to us can be a little bit crunchy, and those happen sometimes when we have a hard aspect to a Venus transit. So those are all things to examine. These are all things we talk about in Cosmic Surfers, which, by the way, I just unpublished the tier. If you're a Cosmic Surfer, you're still in the tier. We've just closed it down for a little while because I'm getting some more curriculum done, and we'll open that up a little bit more in the Mystery School. But I just want to keep the people we've got in there right now and not take anybody new until the Mystery School is up. Living by Luna. We explore things a little differently in Living by Luna because we look at the moon being a little more causal because of its proximity to Earth and the fact that it governs the tides, etc. It does govern daily activity. And so we're journaling our observations. We're learning how to observe, analyze, and apply that information. We're about to ready to kick into some application studies here real soon. So that's exciting. So, and in the transit class I'm teaching right now, we're talking, starting next week, I'll be going through the planets. So we'll do the luminaries next week, which is the sun and the moon, and kind of looking at what they bring to the table by transit. So that's super exciting. So, yeah, that's pretty much what progressive evolutionary astrology is. If you're a patron, I'd love to talk with you, about this in a coffee with Laurie at the end of the month. Answer your questions there. You can ask me on Discord. Just go ahead and tag me. I'll be glad to answer some. But that's going to be the end of this segment because I need to get ready for our reading. And coming up next, we'll be talking with the astrologer's apprentice, Mackenzie. Da 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 da. All right, we've got the astrologer's apprentice with us, Mackenzie, or known as McDubs. Hey,
Hello.
It's good to have you.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Super exciting. So you just passed your practice readings on charts that are of non-famous persons from my personal chart library. And I gave you some pretty interesting charts to read.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was a little scary at first when I first saw them because there's just so much in a chart, and the fact that these people, I know they're probably pretty cool, and I don't want to mess it up, but it was exciting, just someone that I don't know and don't know anything about. It's kind of like a puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We call that a cold read. And you did extraordinarily well. That the first chart, when I asked you a little bit about it after I knew when you'd worked on it, you'd finished it, and you started asking questions, I was like, damn, she nailed it. How did it feel to know you'd accurately read that chart?
I was like pleasantly surprised because I'd never done a cold read like that before. Mm-hmm. Usually I like know something about the person, or I know the person. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of validated astrology in my eyes a little more. Mm-hmm. I'm just like a natural skeptic with a scientific background. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I like to read so much about astrology. I just I don't know, just need like more and more proof, I guess. And that was extremely validating and just really cool. I don't know that you could see that in a chart.
Mm-hmm. I was really, really excited because you really nailed it on every aspect. Oh. And not that I didn't think you would.
It's just, I know the charts I'm handing you. I know the people, and so they can be a little complex and they're a little different, and you caught that. And that was really perceptive.
Oh, well, that first one, me and this person have like the same house layout. So I felt like I really understood it a little more than like maybe other charts that are a little different, but it was really cool.
And that was unintentional. I was just grabbing somebody. Yeah, I was just grabbing somebody I thought would be a fun read.
Yeah, it was.
And I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. And I was like, oh, but yeah. Now the second one was more of a challenge, but I can guarantee you will go years before you ever meet anybody that complex again, because that's a very, very, very complicated human being. Very complex individual. Yeah. What did you learn from it?
From the second one? Oh gosh. There's just so many different ways that a lot of things can be seen in the chart. Like there's so many different pathways that a person can take in their life, but they all apply to the chart. So that's kind of what I learned from that.
Yeah, the layers and octaves of expression. Yeah.
Exactly.
When it's, yeah. And we usually kind of shoot in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's tricky when you're reading for people. That's why I always say, especially in more consultative readings, it's okay to ask questions because it's not a psychic reading. Again, in most of my readings, even natal readings, I'll prove a little credibility by, bringing up any transit I see just really quick, of like, oh, hey, you've been under pressure the last 3 years, something like that. But in general, on a natal reading, that's why we give conditional statements. It can express this way or this way, like an ophthalmologist, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, depends on the day.
Many different layers.
Yeah, it is complex. It's good you're a skeptic, I like that. I was too.
I feel like it didn't hold me back, but I was just like, I want to read everything about this topic,
Yeah. No, it didn't hold you back in the least.
Yeah. Good.
You're very good. Yeah. I mean, I started diving deeper because I wanted to prove it wrong, because I don't like the superstition side of it. And so, but what I saw was it was down to how things are interpreted. It wasn't the actual astrology that was an issue. I was like, oh, that was the big aha.
Yeah.
Always research, always study, lifelong. So what was the one thing that seemed coolest to you about getting it right, or completing this part of the apprenticeship training?
That's a good question. I think the coolest part was hearing you talk about the person after I'd like done the analysis, and just seeing how like the things that I saw in the chart were like how they expressed in the actual person, and just I don't know, when you sent this person's Instagram, it was like really cool seeing and hearing them talk and seeing the actual person and not just the chart. Like that was like, it like made me emotional a little bit, because I was like, wow, like I feel like I know this person. I don't know.
Yeah. It connected it. It made it more real. That there was some method to the madness in that first chart. Just because I knew I'd have like physical reference to show you. Depending, I'd be like, yep, here you go. Here's the person you read. And it's extraordinarily validating. And you do connect, like you kept saying, like, I feel like I know them. And you do. You do know them. The chart shows everything about a person, everything, good, bad, indifferent, ups, downs, everything. Yeah. That's why we, in general, I don't share charts. So just so people know, these are people I'm personally friends with who don't mind me using their charts for training. And we keep it confidential.
Yes. Now I know their secrets.
Yes. Now you know all their secrets forever and ever and ever.
Yes.
Right. I always say I'm a great keeper of secrets.
Yeah.
Because I don't break confidentiality. And that's an ethics thing, And when we read charts, we don't, I don't like the talking about people on social media, like when people have done people's charts, or I had this reading, and they talk about their clients. I'm not a fan of identifying my clients. So I don't know. We see so deeply. I want people to trust it, so that's part of the teaching here too. But you'd naturally be that way. You're just not that big of a gossip.
Some of those TikToks with like people going into famous people's charts when like something traumatic happens, I feel like that's maybe crossing a line a little bit, just because you see everything in the chart and we don't know everything that's going on in their life. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
You can argue that if somebody's in the public eye and they have their information out, you can do it. But like the reason I didn't do Will Smith's is I saw there's a lot going on that isn't being seen in the public eye. There's stuff underneath it, and it isn't just about him and Jada. It's not. There's a lot more to the story than we know. Do I know what that is? Not necessarily, but I know there's more there, and I felt uncomfortable contributing to that conversation.
Yeah.
And I felt there were a lot of social nuances that wasn't really my place. I didn't do Britney's either, for the conservatorship. Now I did talk about it in Patreon where like months and months before, I think it was like in the spring of 2021, I was like, she'll have her freedom. I see that, and she got it. Yeah. But I don't like, and the reason I wouldn't do hers is when I read her chart, I saw that, she'd been taken advantage of her whole life. I mean, we knew that, but when you look at her chart, there's so many layers to having been taken advantage. And I was just like, I don't feel right capitalizing on people,
Yeah,
exactly. So there's and every astrologer kind of has to find their own way with it. Where's your ethics? And some people aren't going to have a problem doing it. So, but when it comes to our clients, we don't,
Oh yeah,
we don't yap about them. So
stored in the vault.
In the vault. And that's one of the reasons, and you'll get this way, you're not there yet. But when you start doing enough readings, you have to let the reading go. You can't hold on to every reading you do inside your head because you fill up your brain. So you kind of have to let it wash over and through you.
Yeah.
So
someday
you'll get there soon enough. Because pretty soon Mackenzie's going to take on natal readings for me.
Yeah.
Not before she's ready. And so just so folks know, Mackenzie's going to start joining me for natal readings really soon and just shadow to start. And then once she feels a little more comfortable, because I don't believe in dropping people into the deep end. this is where I did not get any mentorship.
Yeah.
It was just like, go read professionally, said my mentor, into the deep end. I'm like,
That sounds scary.
it was terrifying because it wasn't like I mean, I knew I was good at astrology, but I had no, like, how do you start the reading? How do you end the reading? Where do you end? You know, how do you meet with people? You know, this was the 90s. So I would meet strangers in public places to do the reading.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Well, they weren't coming to my house with my kids, you know. It was like I didn't work in a shop, and I was always a little gun shy of the new agers. So, you know, because it was always kind of, yeah, it was, you know, I've hung out with my fair share, but I was like, you're just carrying dogma around with you. Let's get exciting and like see what happens if we don't live out that dogma. But so I went to conference call software really fast, like using phone programs.
I feel like I don't know. I prefer it that way. In person, it was like very intense.
It's very intense. It's very intimate. Some people like it. Now, I went to a couple astrologers back in the day. I had the first professional reading I paid for was with a cool lady in Portland. God, if I can't remember her name, because I can't. She was also a therapist. And so she treated it more like therapy. And that's kind of where I was at the time. You know, it was during my Saturn return. And then she had an MSW and a counseling license. And it was a very interesting read. I was already a professional at the time, but I also knew we have our biases. So people are like, I've studied my chart for years. That's great. And you have personal biases.
Yep.
And so it's important to get, like, all astrologers go to astrologers. Just like doctors go to a doctor. And then I went to Joanne Wickenberg as well, who I had studied with. And I had her do my chart in 2002. And I didn't.
But that was cool.
She is so cool. She's kind of like, I think, my biggest model, because she's no bullshit.
Yeah.
She just looked at me. She was like, write the freaking book, Laurie. I was like, I don't feel qualified. You don't need any more qualifications. Just write the astrology books. And that was really weird coming from her, because she was a founder of Kepler College. So she was like, I should have accepted it, but my self-esteem wasn't fixed yet. So,
well, looking at your progress chart,
right,
all that ninth house,
and the North Node is in the third. So,
bum bum bum,
bum 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 bum,
yeah.
bum bum bum.
Now's the time.
Yeah. Well, and you're coming in. We're going to do a group reading with you once you feel comfortable.
Woo!
That was a waking thought for me the other day. I woke up with it. Those are the best kinds of thoughts.
Yeah, that's like divine inspiration right there.
I was like, oh my God, that's just perfect. Then everybody, and it'll be a mini reading like we did Make Your Magic. So we'll pick a theme, and then you and I'll tag team.
That's exciting.
We'll do it together.
Yeah.
Like training wheels. Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. And then people get to know you. We might do a couple where there's like just 4 or 5 people maybe at a time. So maybe we'll do like a couple weeks in a row so that you feel really comfortable and confident before you start taking on readings.
Well, and like my thing is I'm a little more shy. So doing group stuff and like just easing into it, I think is what will help me the most.
I love that. Yeah. And that's, you know, to be honest, that's what I want to be, because you're very good and I want you to feel comfortable.
Oh, thank you.
You're not getting dumped in. I'm not going to shove you out there until you're ready, but I'm also not going to let you drag your feet either, because you're really good. You are so much better than you think. And the only way you're going to get confidence is to just start. So we're easing you in.
I blame my 5th house Chiron.
Yeah, I have that. I understand.
It's hard.
It is hard. It is. It's scary to face rejection.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But the only way you do it is to do it and survive it. And nobody's going to reject you anyway, because you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I wouldn't have you do this under my umbrella if I thought you sucked.
Yeah.
I'm nice. I'm not that nice.
Yeah. I trust you and your judgment wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I don't give empty compliments. I don't like them.
Yeah.
So I don't like to receive them, so I don't give them. So my mom was terrible about always like telling you how good you were, even if you sucked.
Oh, I relate.
And yeah. And so my artwork and stuff, that's the best, honey. And like, even I can't, like 5, I can't tell what I just drew. How can it be the best?
Oh.
I'd be like, Mom, please.
Oh my.
Yeah. Like, come on. I know it sucked. Yeah. So I try to make sure. So I think people will be very, very lucky to have you read. You have a beautiful flow. You have solid foundation. Mm-hmm. Like you came into me pretty well studied, you know.
Yeah, I had read like a few books or something, but not when I like had my reading with you, I was like mind blown. I was like, oh my God, you can see way more than I thought you could, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Your reading, I actually remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was very profound.
It was a really cool one. And it obviously had changed the course of my life. So
both of our lives. My God, my girl.
Oh, I love it.
Me too. My goal is to get wonderful, intuitive, thoughtful human beings out there as great astrologers, so we can turn the tide away from superstition and all of the things that make people like Neil have any kind of validity to their arguments, you know, because when they're arguing against astrology, they're arguing against the shitty astrology out there.
Yeah.
And there's not enough good astrology publicly that's written in ways that's easily understood or put into practical terms. And well, by golly, we'll just do it ourselves.
Yes. And I'm excited. I just feel like this is going to go places, you know?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm super, super duper excited. So with that, today Saturn and Mars are conjunct, and I hear a bunch of people whining. I have been inspired all day long.
Yeah, it's powerful energy.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost the Hellenistic astrology that is like, oh, like this is bad energy, blah, blah, blah. No, it's powerful energy.
It is. It's powerful, and it's power that needs to be structured. You know, and so if you're chaotic, or if you're lazy, or if you want the rewards without having put in the time, well, it's not going to be a very great day.
Yes.
You know, and, you know, if you are willing to structure yourself, like I've been working on my website all day, the new one. Oh my God. It's like boom, boom, boom. The structure's all flowing.
Yes.
And through the cool little glyphs. Those are so cute.
Getting shit done.
Getting shit done, taking names. But yeah, you're right. The Hellenistic,
it's so like negative. It's just so negative mind thinking. And I feel like we need to switch that.
Yeah. Well, and there's some reasons behind the negative interpretations. And one of those is you have to remember back in the Hellenistic era, the only people who got astrology done for them were the upper echelon. Mm-hmm. Everyday regular peasant folk did not have access to astrologers. They didn't know astrology. That's why when witches now, people who claim to be witches are like, I don't understand astrology. That makes me a bad witch. Well, guess what? People who did the magic spells like kitchen witchery and herbal medicine and things like that, like basic magic, didn't usually do astrology. Mm-hmm. They usually worked with the moon because it's obvious, and certain special days when the sun was in certain points. But astrology itself was guarded. It was very closed. You needed to be brought in. It's a study. And then the negativity was used to control. It was used to keep the astrologers alive. It was used to control whoever was in power a little bit. That makes sense. Yeah. And so, and at the same time, you could lose your head really easy given some bad news. So you'd be like, you need to beware. I wouldn't go out, you know, and if you missed it, you could get in trouble too. So yeah. So some of it is about control. And then you have to look at the society it came from. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Greek gods.
Oh God.
Lord, it's petty on steroids. Mm-hmm. You know, most deity stuff. I'll be writing about that on, I'll have some articles on it. My brand of astrology, which is progressive evolutionary. Not just evolutionary, because I think evolutionary astrology, just like evolutionary psychology, kind of is used to genderfy everything. But kind of weird. But progressive in that, like, hey, we need to change this narrative a little bit. Mm-hmm. We need to look at things as energy.
Excited to read your book.
Oh my God. Well, you guys will get to read it first.
Yeah. Feel very honored to be a part of this.
Oh, you know, I keep telling you guys, I am equally so to have you wonderful mod squad, wonderful people willing to learn and examine and not just take what I say and be like, oh yes, Laurie, this must be it, but to question me. Mm-hmm. You know, you're thinkers. Holy crap, this is a blessing. I don't want you guys to take what I say at face value. You know, I want you guys to study and expand and come up with your own understandings, your own interpretations. Yes. I'm just trying to give you a foundation, but you guys have just really been kind of a dream come true. So especially my first little cosmic surfer.
Oh, that was really cool.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, so everybody keep your eyes out because April is a big month here for us at the Awake Space, and got the mystery school. We've got my new website, laurierivers.com is coming out. We've got Mackenzie who's going to be helping me out.
Yes.
Super exciting. So
I'm so excited. This Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is going to be a good one.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. And they're really close right now. You know, they're like what, a degree and a half away.
I can feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Blow through reality and make some magic. All right, Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining. And
thank you for having me.
I know everybody's always happy to hear from you. So we'll check in again soon.
Yes, sounds good.
Awesome.
Isn't Mackenzie just lovely? I just adore her, and I am so excited that she is going to be joining me in my practice, and I have a few other apprentices lining up in the works, so I am super excited to grow and nurture some really good astrologers who will do good things in the world, and it's gratifying. So it's time for some patron shout outs. Once again, I don't take any sponsorships. Patrons make this podcast possible, and you can find my Patreon at The Awake Space, which is patreon.com, The Awake Space. Okay, that's simple. I almost flubbed that, but I don't feel like re-recording this, so we're going to run with it. It's just beautiful to have this many really cool people come in and give their support and request more and more and more. So, who do we have? We have Dina, Colette, Casey, Madison, Vanessa, Brittany, Nat, Julie, Posil, Mega the Wild, Kim, Alana, Trevor, Jack, Lisa, Kenna, Ashita, Sitali, Julia, Savannah, Katie, Leah, Maria, and Jennifer. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, 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 and thank you for your support. I'm loving the participation in the Discord. It's super exciting to see people kind of step out of their comfort zones and come in and say hi, or post a news story in the links for the news article, or get involved in the current events discussion, or come in and celebrate with people, or even seek support because, you know, sometimes you have a bad day. And that everybody does. You know, sometimes there's just life-changing news that happens. We all have our transits, right? So to watch this community unfold is just beautiful. And I think I talked a little bit about that at the beginning. So I'm really proud of the Patreon. I'm really proud to have so many wonderful people involved. And speaking of wonderful people, it's time to shout out to the Mod Squad. I love the Mod Squad. These guys, I tell you, these peeps. So, big shout out to Kathy Sisterluck. She is the hostess with the mostest, and is actually going to take on being editor-in-chief of the Mystery School newspaper or blog. But yes, it'll be that's something we'll unveil soon. Super exciting. We've got Chris Absolute, who is, oh my gosh, one of the most helpful human beings I've ever run across. I don't know where I'd be without her sending me reminders, helping me get links out. Invaluable. Invaluable. Casey, speaking of invaluable, each mod is invaluable because of just their individual, wonderful, unique abilities and talents and skills that they so generously share, not just with me, but the community at large, and with each other. And it's just beautiful. So we got Casey, who has now changed her username to Immaterial Goyle. We've got Maleficent, Molly, loving you. Let's see. You're like, Laurie, can't you remember your mods? I can, but there's a lot. McDubs, obviously. Rita, Mango Rita. I don't know where I'd be without her. I tell you, all of you guys are indispensable. Shane. Which we now have a great GIF of Shane, or not GIF, but emoji, and it's pretty funny. So, speaking of emojis, Casey made emojis out of me and Malcolm, too. So we've got Shane, me, and Molly. I'm sure everybody will be made into emojis on the Mod Squad at some point. That's super fun. And then Mujen, okay, Jennifer. Amazing. Not only is she a great astrological protege, good person to ask your questions to as well. Both her and McDubs are available for that. I mean, all of the Mod Squad can answer, but these are go-tos. Jen is so useful, and she's our bot queen. She's the one who got the tarot bot set up. It's been pretty mean lately, though. I don't know about that tarot and that bot. It's kind of nuts. But you can pull your tarot cards now. Take your risks. When you come into the thread, we've got, if you go into the bot playroom, you can pull some pull some tarot. We're going to be working on getting some big 3 information in there pretty soon as well. So we'll have some lighthearted astrology. That little thunk was my phone. But big, gigantic, big hugs to all of the mods and all the help they give. Not only me, but the community at large. They're beautiful, beautiful people with real lives and feelings and things. So, they're not like goose-stepping to my command. They're helping keep the community pretty streamlined and orderly, because we've got over 300 people in there, and it can get a little wild. In fact, we're pushing 400 in the server, guys. So it's, I want people to feel safe participating. So remember, we've got some server rules that are pretty common sense. And if you have a question, feel free to reach out to a mod. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about Venus in Pisces. Venus in Pisces, and that's what we're going to talk about next. All right, Venus is in Pisces, and this is pretty magical. So Venus is rising up from the sea to shed some light and love on our intuition and our creative faculties. Pisces gets so much short shrift from, inexperienced astrologers, or just people who talk about astrology who just copy what they read on blogs or Google, etc. And they're so doom and gloomy. And their excuse is, you have to talk about the negative. You have to take the negative too. You have to look at the shadow side. And I'm like, honey, I'm a Scorpio rising. I live in the shadows. I get it. But to quote the end of The Life of Brian, a movie I introduced to my moderators, always look on the bright side of life. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. If all you're tuning into is the muck and the mire and the conflict and the negativity, your existence is going to suck. Okay, point blank. And Pisces is about vision. It's about otherworldly vision. It's about connecting to the unseen. Pisces rules the unseen, the unprovable. Yeah, it's not realism. But when we look at realism, when we look at nuts and bolts and material living, there's a lot of misunderstandings about what that actually is. And the reality is, you're born and you die. What you do in between is called living. Now, we all face challenges in this life. We all walk an insular path at times. We all face horrors of some kind at some point in our life. No one has it easy. Everyone has their own perception. Everyone faces their own challenges. And it's when we get into comparisons, this person's life is easier than my life. I don't fit in. I wish I could conform. There's this term called terminal uniqueness, where you're so absorbed in your own perceptions and experience that you feel like what you've been through is singularly your experience. And the fact of the matter is, many people have shared realities, and they're not always pleasant. And also, not everybody is absent of having metaphysical phenomena happening. People be like, well, I can channel, and I can see ghosts, and I can talk to dead people, and I can speak to spirit, and I can read intuitively. Yeah, a lot of people can. And we all do it, and we all go through these things in our own unique individual ways, and it's important to celebrate one another. Likewise, it isn't a bad thing to look at things holistically, okay? Holistically, which means not everything that appears bad is bad. Not every challenge is wrong. Not every obstacle is a bad thing. If you're running towards a cliff and a wall shows up preventing you from falling 800 feet, it might hurt to hit the wall, but it hurts a lot less than falling off the cliff. And that is a sense of perspective. Okay. Now, am I diminishing your trauma? Absolutely not. Of course I'm not. It's important to look at our lives in different ways. But I kind of talked about this at the top of the hour where we were looking at, causality. Oh no, the table, it's broken. Well, it doesn't always fix it, right? So with Venus in Pisces, it's allowing us to really tune in to that which we want to craft and shape into reality. You see, Pisces rules the 12th house. And as much as people call it the house of restrictions and suffering, yeah, it is that. It is that when you're disconnected from your cosmic self, with your universal self, your soul self, your connection to the all that is, when you forget that you're a part of a wider universe and you feel isolated and alone. Yes, absolutely. It's where our anxiety and our fears lie. It can be a gritty place. But everybody forgets it's the place where magic happens, because Pisces is all about the magic. You see, Scorpio is the occulted and the alchemy. It's more of the science behind the magic. It's about the conjuring and the making. Pisces is about the dreaming into being. And almost every invention we have today was an impossible idea at one point. Okay. Walt Disney, like him, hate him, think he was a creep, whatever. He had the Imagineers. Why did he have somebody be an Imagineer? Instead of engineering concretely, he wanted people to dream up and then realize the vision. Well, Walt Disney was a Pisces. The power of imagination is so strong. Albert Einstein was a Pisces. Okay, guys? Not an Aquarian, as a lot of people want to attribute because of his genius. Pisces has its genius too, and it floats into the ether and it tunes in and taps in. And where we get in trouble is how we tune in. So when you're luxuriating in your misery, and we wallow, we have pity parties. I do too. I'm not saying I don't or I haven't. I was really good at wallowing. Hello, Cancerian. Of course I could wallow with the best of them. But the more you wallow, the more you're tuned to the station of wallowing. And if you can tune your tuner to something with a little more hope, it doesn't have to be a big jump. When I was a little girl going through a great deal of trauma, every day I would tell myself, it's got to be better than this. I didn't necessarily know what better was, but I did think, it's got to be better than this. It can't always be this way. And as a teenager, I remember my senior year getting, "This is the best time of your life" speech. And I raised my hand and I looked at the teacher and I said, that can't possibly be true. This cannot possibly be the best time of my life, because if it is, I have no reason to keep living. And he thought I was being melodramatic, but I was dead serious. And I thought, there's no way this is the best time of my life. And guess what? I was right. It gets better and better. We can only go to the next best thing. We can only move from one experience to the next best decision, the next best choice. Beating yourself up for your choices is redonkulous. Okay? You can only make the next best decision. That's it. And we learn. We learn and we grow. So with Venus and Pisces, we're attracting some magic, because Venus is about attraction and magnetism. It really is, if there's a planet that goes with the law of attraction, it's Venus. But it's actually, well, a trifecta. You have your Mercury and you get clear. Get clear. The Venus helps you want it. So you get clear about the idea. You feel into it. You build the desire. You feel into it. What would it be like to have it, be it, do it? And then Venus sends signals to your Mars, and you align your actions to retrieve it. So it's Mercury, Venus, and Mars. They work together as the perfect trifecta. Venus transiting Pisces is giving you an opportunity and a blessing in the house that Venus is transiting. So if it's your first house, this is personal achievement. This is putting yourself out there. This is getting, if you have to pitch something or put an idea forth, it might gather somebody you need in your life, not in a partner way, but more like a helper of some kind, the right kind of person to help you move forward. It'll bring you, it's also a great time to up your appearance, get some new clothes, do a new do, right? Put your best self forward, reimagine yourself in new ways. Love yourself up like you've never loved yourself before. If it's moving through your second house, this is a very good financial opportunity. And if it's in your second house, so is Jupiter and Neptune, you lucky frickin' ducky. This is the time to really get clear about your financial goals and how you support yourself and reimagine how you bring forth your income and work on some self-love too, because this is about self-worth. That first and second house are foundationally important, because if you don't see yourself as somebody worthwhile, well, it's hard to put yourself out there, which is the first house. The third house, my God, are you about to be inspired and have the right ideas and words flow through you? If you're looking for a new set of wheels, this is a good time to put it out into the universe. But being able to connect and communicate soulfully, if you channel, you're going to be amazed with what flows through you. If you're a musician, you would be writing beautiful music and your voice is just going to be perfect. Fourth house, all things to do with your home. All things to do with your home and family. If you're moving, this is a good time for it. Or if you're renovating or wanting to bring new things. You'll also be able to catch any leaks or anywhere that water might be flowing. You'll be saved by the bill. Then we have the fifth house. That's creative self-expression. If you are a performer, a singer, a poet, a writer, a dreamer, an artist, a photographer, this is a beautiful transit for you. Write down every ounce of inspiration that comes your way. Sixth house is work, health, and service. And so you've got some good news coming to you in the health department, but it's also a brilliant time to take on projects and work ideas to help you set your daily routine in a way that works for you. So, it's work, health, and service. So it's our daily routine. It's our day job. You might have a better schedule set up for yourself. That's essential. You don't do well with regimented schedules if you have Pisces on the sixth house. The seventh house, it's agreements and commitments. My feelings about calling it the house of marriage, and if you don't, well, here they are. Marriage is just one of the forms of commitment governed by the seventh house. You could get new clients. You could have new contracts for a project. You might meet a new best friend. You might, somebody who's ride and die. And of course, if you're married or in a significant relationship with another person, in a agreement of relationship, okay? I would say love, and it can be loving, but this is about commitment and contracts. So somebody in a contracted relationship, a ride or die, the people we make vows to, those vows are a contract, then things could improve in that department. It doesn't always mean you'll meet someone if you're single. That's more fifth house. But you might. You might meet that stranger across a room. Hopefully they're wearing a mask. Eighth house is how we transform and through those relationships and connections and commitments. This is the house of how we transform through these intense experiences and intimate relationships. It's the house of inheritance. We inherit many things from our families, not always money and land. Sometimes it's ideals. Sometimes it's personality traits. Sometimes it's skill sets. And sometimes it's how we grieve. We only grieve as deep as we love. I say that all the time. Now, Venus going through the 8th house is going to make you pretty lucky. If it's going through your 2nd or your 8th, I'd buy lottery tickets. If you win, I want to cut. I'm just kidding. But it's a fortunate time financially. This is a time to make good on some investments. It's a good time to look for grants or find loans. That's all 8th house. And it's a beautiful time to get in tune with your ability to communicate with spirit. Okay. So this is a time to study the occult or work with oracle cards. 9th house is expanding experiences. This is where we do all things production. This is where we take the ideas from the 3rd house and realize them. It's long distance travel. It's a great time to take a boat ride. It is, although I'd stay off cruises because this new Omicron recombinant is something a little fierce. Do please wear your masks. It is a time to teach and preach. It's a time to put forth your personal gnosis. It's a time to form your personal gnosis. It's a time to reshape your beliefs. And if you're publishing anything, like I said, it's preaching, teaching, publishing, production of all kinds, even video, etc. This is great for you. 10th house is our calling. It's our power in the world. It's our reputation. It is, yes, called the house of career. Most people don't have that. It's an avocation. But this is a good time for you. If you're looking for promotion, if you're trying to get yourself out there, this is great for personal branding. You will be seen and people will be very, very attracted to you as somebody they see as wise and kind and compassionate. So if you are in the arts, if you're in film, if you're in the music industry, this is a good time for you. Same with the 6th house. All those industries are great for that. 11th house is hopes, dreams, inspiration, aspiration, community, collaboration, the internet. This is a great time to be out there socially online. This is time to just take the inspiration and run with it. Keep a journal next to you at all times to jot down notes. The muse is sitting on your shoulder and you may have collaborators show up in your life. And then we come to the 12th house and you've got Jupiter and Neptune at home there. And then Venus comes to play as well. And so expect to be able to really connect on a spiritual level and percolate those hopes, dreams, and inspirations that have been coming to you over time. This is where all of them are incubating. And it's really important, especially if you have this going on in your 12th house, to pay special attention to what you're tuning into, okay? Because you're very, very receptive at this time. And what you receive, how you perceive that is based on what you're tuning into. So when I was talking about the different kinds of frequencies, like radio frequencies, if you don't like what you're receiving, if you're picking too much up on the collective angst and sorrow and worry and doubt, tune to hope. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't negate the other experiences. It doesn't mean you're not a compassionate person. But you cannot be drowning in the collective misery. You can't help people that way. You can help people if you tune into hope. if you tune into your natural creative connection with the all that is, however you describe it. Some people would call it a deity. Some people would call it the cosmos. Some people call it the universe. Some people call it Gaia. Some people call it your soul. I don't care what you call it. You need to know what you call it, right? So what we're going to do is tune in to that which is more soothing. Notice I didn't say you had to be euphoric. I didn't say you had to be in great enthusiasm. But tune in to something soothing and you'll percolate. Okay, the 12th house is magic. It's magical thinking. It's naturally ruled by Pisces. And so having Jupiter and Neptune and Venus in there, ya lucky ducky, you can imagine things into being. And that is a very, very, very special thing. Venus is going to meet up with Jupiter and Neptune later in the month. Again, once in a lifetime transit. You can't really blow it, but you can maximize it. And that's what we talked about in Make Your Magic, which was group readings. I'm not going to offer it again because April 12th is right around the corner, and so is getting the mystery school ready. And so I know there's some of you who want to do readings with me next week, but I've booked it off. Okay, I'm taking mid-April off so that I can get the mystery school finished. I have a lot of recording to do, and I can't do that and read a lot of charts. But I am going to offer some classes for clarity. So we have had some requests for doing a class on the nodes, the lunar nodes. And so I've thought about doing the nodes through the houses. I thought you guys might enjoy that. And then we'll do lunar phases and what those mean as well, because there's so much more than the new and full moon, and you don't even have to understand astrology to work with lunar phases. Those are traditional witchery uses. If people were using like hedge witching or kitchen witchery, traditional folk magic often utilizes lunar phases, and it's not less than astrology. It's just astrology and folk magic are not the same thing. They're not the same thing. And people who did folk magic often, not always, but most often, were not actual astrologers, but they worked heavily with the moon. And that is the discord. It's being all crazy now. So that's my signal to end this podcast. I hope you really enjoyed. It's a little longer than normal. My gosh, we were just chatty Cathy's, but the moon is in Gemini, and I got Venus in Gemini, so you know how it goes. All right, guys. Again, I appreciate all of the listeners, the patrons. This is just an amazing journey getting to do all of this because I'm getting to do all my favorite things all at the same time. And there's no words adequate to express my gratitude to you and my appreciation. But I hope you can feel it. And, well, thanks. I'll see you next time on the next episode of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast.